Doop. Hi, you're listening to In the Kaleidoscope, a podcast where parent
Laura
and child, Carrie, talk about family dynamics when the parent is neurodivergent and the child is neurotypical. Welcome. Today, we are starting with the concept of literal. We're talking about literal versus figurative versus metaphorical, probably a little bit of black and white. And the reason we're thinking that this is like a good jumping off point is that we've had a couple of conversations over the last few podcasts where it's like when we've noticed that when children try to approach something literally, they can take it too far, like all the way into adulthood. We've also noticed that sometimes our neurodivergent friends get baffled when it doesn't make sense literally, right? When like something doesn't actually make logical, literal sense, then you have to like kind of work it out and figure out like, what was the figurative mystery here? So that's,
right.
there you go.
Yeah. That's a thing for me now. I finally understand this with my partner. He will say something like, you know, like if we're getting in a fight, or he'll say, well, you always do blah, 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 blah. And my response usually is, I don't always do that. Sometimes I do other things, sometimes whatever. And lately I've had to like stop my brain and go, he's expressing an emotion. He is not trying to state a fact. And he's being metaphorical when he says always or never, any of that stuff. And I literally have to stop myself and inject those thoughts into my head before I respond. And sometimes I'll just say it out loud. You are being metaphorical here. And I'm going to process it metaphorically and not literally. She's laughing.
Yeah, I love the idea of like being in an argument, somebody uses the always, because everybody does that, and they're always being told to not do that. And then they still do it. And I love the idea of like a great response of being like, you are being metaphorical. It's like, you know what? I am in fact being metaphorical right now.
Right.
I feel so
and
heard.
The English language includes a great deal of metaphor and poetry, so it is a valid use of the English language. You know?
That's so funny.
I tell you,
yeah.
But it just, well, and you and I have that lately. I think it was like was down there visiting at Thanksgiving, and we were walking along talking about something, and you were just poking fun at me. You poked some fun at me about something, and you know, I kept walking. About 20 paces later, I was like, well, you know, I don't always do that. Sometimes I do this and this. And I like totally circled back to it, and you were like, Mom, I was teasing you. I was like, oh, that's one of these moments, you know. So it is, and I guess I'm only noticing it about myself that I had done this, but I've probably done it my whole life, but I did not notice it till literally this year. You know, every other time I have felt like I've been kind of like in the flow of the conversation or whatever, but someone's saying something that I know is not accurate to fact. And you know, and you know, and I kind of in my mind on my sheet of like topics, I have this connected with the word lying, because in my brain,
oh, interesting,
sometimes it feels like if I'm in the middle of an argument and somebody throws an always or never at me, I'm thinking they're derailing the conversation by now lying about me, because I don't actually do those things always or never. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, whatever. But I like, and then I get angry because I'm being besmirched, you know, and it kind of escalates everything. Whereas if I'm able to go, okay, they're not, you know, if it's like I'm hearing this person, but at the same time, when I am stating a fact, I want the fact I'm stating to be acknowledged as a fact and not be taken personally, and not be, you know, like sometimes arguments will start around here because I'll say something like, the mail is not in here yet, is it? and all I want is a yes or no answer. And the answer I get is, well, I need to put my shoes on. I haven't gotten to it yet. It's like I get this whole paragraph. And all I want to know is the mail on the table? Because if it's not, I'll just go get it. You know?
So, you know, that's difficult, right? Because I think that maybe it's hard for me to believe. How about that? But maybe you are just saying the mail is not in here yet, is it? It's just the content, right? But humans, maybe neurotypical, maybe any, hard to tell. Actually, I guess, you know, tone blindness is tone blindness. But humans, if they're sensitive to tone, they perceive neutral as negative. So just stating content, like saying content, will be perceived as a judgment, right? And it's very challenging to receive content declarations like that and not assume a judgment, because what I would do if I were trying to ask that question would be to like try to make it very friendly, like, oh, and I definitely see you doing this in life when you put on friendly voice. I'm not trying to, I'm just gonna do friendly voice. I accept it. I'm like, yes, I understand friendly voice. You got it. Turns off the fear response. But it is true that like just stating facts, because there's so much room for interpretation, usually like triggers a threat response, you know? It's just like,
well, that's for neurotypical people. Okay. I'm going to really draw a dotted line here, because I just I want people to just tell me facts, and I want to just ask a yes or no question and get a yes or no answer.
I'll say this at work. I enjoy working, like once I know who is and isn't neurodivergent, I change like with the neurodivergent people, I just spew facts at them.
Yeah,
like
baby.
I'm making like a shooting gesture,
like a deck of cards. You know, it's like the deck of cards gesture.
Yeah, just like, here's a bunch of facts for you. You know, I don't even bother with the like, you know, and at most I ground like the anxiety that comes out of that what happens when the facts like don't line up and people start to be like, all of those facts, there's problems in there, and I go, totally. And we're not going to freak out about it. We're going to take deep breaths, and we're just going to like work through the facts until the facts make sense. You know, that's what I do all the time.
Rational. That makes complete sense to me.
Yes.
But
that's not.
So I don't think either one is right or wrong. I don't think either one is right or wrong. And so sometimes I feel like, you know, in these, again, with the conversations with my partner, and eventually I want to extend this to what it was like being a parent, like talking this way, is that if you're with a person, mostly neurotypical people, who are going to take something personally no matter how you present it, because they've got a thing in their brain that makes them sensitive to being criticized, say.
Yeah, right? That's not fun. That's not good.
Well, so at a certain point, you know, I feel justified in saying, okay, that's you. I am just talking, and you need to like get that I am just talking and not constantly make me do the extending into your universe. It's got to be a two-way thing.
The truth is, if you have a partner or an intimate person in your life, they have to learn that you just say facts. You know what I mean? And they have to like believe that, or they're not going to understand you as a person. And that's just the way it goes. And that person has a hard time being close, right? Like, it's just like, that's what closeness is.
Well, and sadly, not having known this about myself until a year ago, you know, I really did kind of absorb a lot of the tone policing I've received through my life, you know, and okay, maybe I'll just say it this way and someone will like it better. I say it this way. And it's like, no, it's always, you know. So, okay, so then let's take this conversation and move it to, I'm now the parent, and I am throwing facts at you guys. Like, you ask me a question, I throw you facts. You know, like I'm going to think case in point about the lovely episode in your life where I yanked you across country from Los Angeles to New England, you know, in middle school. in the middle of the year,
Mhm.
you know? So it was like, it was like I can see now from where I am now, this was a bunch of whammies, you know? And it
Yeah.
also was after 2 months of my having been gone, because I was working across country and you were with a sitter for 2 months. And then I came back from working 2 months and I said, oh, we're now moving 3,000 miles away from
Yeah.
everybody. And your questions to me were not about, oh, am I going to get a bedroom, or oh, am I going to blah blah. I mean, oh, we're going to have more money. Those weren't your questions. Those were all the good points, you know, but those weren't your questions. Are, I'm going to lose all my friends, you know,
Yeah.
you know, how am I going to, in the middle of the year, what's this going to be like? And I tried to give you facts, you know,
Mhm.
I mean, which were to me facts. You're a fabulous person. You're going to make friends easily, of course, no big deal. And none of that helped until I got kind of more into the metaphorical zone, which was where I said, you have attracted this kind of person to you up until this point. You're going to go to this new port and you're going to be the same person who attracts those same people to you. Now that's a non-starter for me from a fact point of view, because of course that's not factual. That's hopeful. That's, you know, that you can maybe look at a trend. But I had to believe it enough so that when I told you, you also believed it, at least enough to keep you from completely, you know, having your brain fried by this. Now you've got your perspective on this that I would be delighted to hear, you know, and to learn about that time in your life. And also then to kind of talk about what, you know, it's like so in a sense, it's almost like as the neurodivergent parent in circumstances like that, those are the times where you choose to mask and you choose to be the other kind of person, the more, you know, nurturing, more metaphorical, more figurative person, because you're talking to someone who's really defaults to that more. Do you know what I'm saying? It's making sense? Or you're kind of, okay, you're
well, it's
thinking.
interesting to hear your take on that, because I mean, I have memories of those conversations, and I know how it went. And it's just taking me a second to sew it together, make sense of it. It's interesting that you think of that as masking, is kind of what's going through my mind. I think that, like, for a child who is looking for reassurance, it's like what you said was still in a way factually true, you know, because you're still just saying the facts. You have attracted this kind of person. There's no reason to not think, or there's no reason to think you wouldn't attract those people, those kinds of people again. And the facts are, there are other people that are similar to these somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, that those are all technically facts. And then the kind of more squishy bit is like, do you have the capacity to do that? We'll find out, you know, but right now we'll give you the impression that you do, you know, and we'll like, and I think what's weird, this is like a lot to process all at once. I didn't realize we were gonna like talk about this.
Sorry. I took it there. Okay. I took it there.
My loading time is really long on this, but like it's really weird to think there's sort of like a light indoctrination quality to what you just said, like masking on purpose because it like makes it palatable for the child to go do something.
Well, it's genuinely comforting them, you know, in a way that they will feel because like what I didn't say and what I never understood or acknowledged because I didn't feel it was the idea that you were going to miss the friends that you had. And you were going to miss the people you knew.
I mean, that's a whole thing, because there are a lot of people in my history that I missed that we didn't talk about. You know, there's like a lot of missing that was unacknowledged.
Because
growing
I
up.
don't miss people. When I move on to the new thing, I move on 100%. And
And
I don't
do you
experience
think it's like
that.
a you trait, or do you think that's a neurodivergent trait for you?
I do not know. I would love to invite any, autistic person listening to this to get back
Like
to
you
us and
miss
say,
me.
I mean,
Yeah.
I adore you. And if I think about you too much, I miss you too much. And so then I shut it off. I've got a valve that I shut off.
Ah.
And that I learned that from
Mm.
going to summer camp every summer, violently loving everyone I met there because they were the only people that truly accepted
I
me.
see.
So for 1, 2, 3 weeks out of every year, I would be bathed in love. And then I would have to go back to this universe where I was being bullied and, whatever, all the stuff that was happening. And so I had to I'm going to see him next year. I have to turn it off. So I became very good at just leaving, which is why I, move around so much. And I had no resistance to moving. In fact, sometimes I would feel like I'm wearing out a place and I'm going to go someplace new so that I can kind of reset. This was all long before I knew anything about being neurodivergent, right? So, for me, this was just, this is how Laura is. And so I don't think I miss people the way you see missing people described in like literature or in movies or whatever, I don't. I'm kind of an out of sight, out of mind. I'm kind of a, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with kind of person. Those are my two kind of themes, So to be like empathetic toward you about, like the past is the past. And I would probably I might have projected that I see that as weakness to be too clingy to the past and clingy to people that aren't around. And that goes all the way to, your dad and like how I didn't understand you were going to miss him when we moved across country and stuff like that, So, I mean, it's not that if you told me, I might have understood. What I'm saying is it didn't occur to me that you were going to actually miss individual people when we moved across country. I just figured you'll find replacements, that's what'll happen. Is that a neurodivergent thing or is that a me thing? I don't know.
I did. I don't know. We'll find out. Somebody might tell us if they relate or not. I have not necessarily felt like that was a neurodivergent trait. I see a lot of friends missing pretty deeply. I know that this concept of missing is a whole, there's a lot of depth there, I think, between us, because a lot of like, this is a whole other conversation, I think.
Well, just because there's something I do want to point out before we move on, was I love that we caught in real time you processing something. And I want to point out that this is a skill I've had to build, is waiting through the processing. When somebody I love is processing something in front of me, I have had to learn, I think this very much is an autistic trait, because I will just plow through and get to a conclusion as fast as possible. And recognizing that I have needed to learn how to love someone who processes more deliberately and probably more deeply, whereas I shoot right to a conclusion, like super fast with like hyper processing speed. And I with the people I deeply love, I will do that. I take the time to do that. I don't do it with everybody, and I don't do it every time either.
Yeah. I try to say it out loud, it helps my friends, like, because sometimes they won't hold space. They'll just rapid fire talk right past me. And there are things I'm considering, like essentially what I'm doing in the processing time is not only registering like how it made me feel, but also like why and where the surprise is coming from. And then like what is and isn't safe to communicate right now. So it's like, it's all of it's not like just what you said I don't understand, right? Like I definitely understand it. It's just the implications and all the connections to it. And then also like, that's just like those are very old memories, But so I try to say it. No. I know.
I'm just saying this happens a lot where people have to take a breath to not you know, I know you totally understood what I said. That's not in question. It's more like what your response, how do you actually feel about it? Where is it in your body? What is it bringing up for you?
What
And
does
then
it mean?
what does it mean? And making a deliberate choice about what
Yeah.
you want to share, about it.
Yeah.
And those things are all like me. I have had to learn to be present in that moment and not try to co-opt it or try to push a conclusion or whatever. And that's, I suppose this, when we said this was about being literal, but I think this is also a lot about just communication in general, like when you are in an inner, yes, rhythm, pacing, tone, I guess. I mean, and so I guess, again, I always try to, like, in these conversations, we're almost already at the half hour. It's kind of amazing how fast it goes. In this conversation, like if I was going to draw a conclusion, which I will try to do with every episode of what I'm hearing as an autistic parent, if I had known then what I know now,
okay,
holy cow, would I even have made all those decisions I made? I made a lot of snap decisions because they made logical sense to me at the time. And I didn't question or even investigate the repercussions of those decisions. I just figured everyone's going to be fine. And these were big decisions. Moving across country for a little kid is a big deal. And I had already done it a couple of times. So I thought, no big deal. Like, again, with this theme of me just thinking of you guys as peers, and not understanding there's, and also if you're not involved in the decision, this is just happening to you. And that has an impact on how you, so I can be literally telling you, okay, we're going to have a bigger house. We're going to have more money. I'm going to have a job I love for a change. It's, blah, 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 this and that, this and that. And those things might all be true, but I did not investigate all the other things that were also true, which is that any change, good or bad, is stressful. And this is a big change for a little body, to have to go through. And so now I'm thinking too, okay, and maybe all of the autistic parents listening to this already know all this stuff, and they're like, actually, you were just a bad parent in those instances that you did those things. This could absolutely be true, because again, I'm just going off of my one data point. I wish I had known more about, the resiliency that my brain has for change is not something I can expect of every person around me, and especially somebody who's a little kid. I can't just assume that's there because they happen to be my spawn, So is this,
I mean, it was hard. I believed you when you told me those things. It was a weird time. I was also like, I was a child going through puberty at the same time too. So like my body was confusing me in the middle of that transition. And I think in an earlier episode, I was talking about how important aesthetics were to me. And like, I didn't even know that. And I got stuck with this like jacket I thought was so ugly, and so I just opted to be so cold instead of warm in the middle of winter. There's just like a lot of confusing teenage body stuff that happened at that time that's like way more kid complex than even what we just talked about here, just being embodied through puberty at a time when they're in an environment where for multiple reasons, you and I were not acknowledging bodily needs, like physical or no, it was very, very logical. We were deep in logic as a unit, and that worked fine in some instances, but in a lot of places where we ran into trouble as a family unit, it was kind of like missing that body piece,
absolutely.
Just being a human, like attempting to humanize, so I think like it's just like that. I'm curious to maybe we should like revisit this at some point because I'm curious to remember like why we brought up this particular memory as the the example, because there's just
Oh, because
so much here.
well, it was me,
Yeah.
me communicating to you literally when there were feelings happening that
Yeah,
I,
but I could tell you a time when you did that and it was very helpful to me, like when I was when I was in, I think we may have, honestly, this may be a memory, like something we've already talked about, but like, I'm in third grade and this woman is like this girl, my peer, I'm in third grade. So she's not a woman. We're both
she's a
children.
woman now.
Yeah. But she's doing things like really sassy things, I think the experience was we were at Girl Scouts and she was like, she knew who my crush was. His name was David. And in the middle of Girl Scouts, she was like, I asked David to kiss me and he did. And then I sat there like, like, oh my gosh, like, how could this be? Oh, maybe she doesn't know. Then she sat down and she looked at me and she said, does that bother you? And I was like, no, I don't know. Like, I was gonna say no. Like, I feel like the game here is that I am bothered, so I'm not going to do that. But also, I went home and I was like, how could she? Like, what is this? And you just went through like the facts, like what could be happening at home, like where she could be in her mind, as a child.
Yeah, because it seems like you were so to me, I heard your literal words were like, why is she doing this? And I was like, okay, let's peel apart why she might be doing
that was
this.
helpful.
Okay.
That was great.
Okay.
But
a lot of times you could just go, oh, it's shitty that she's doing that. That's just shitty, like.
Oh yeah. That would be less helpful because I was literally asking that point.
Right.
See, this is what I mean. I feel like we might want to revisit this topic
because
there's something to talk about between a child asking for literal information and the fact that you gave me literal information back whenever I asked for it. And there's a lot of kids who don't get that. They get the metaphorical figurative response that's missing the literal info. Now, getting information when you're not asking for it, too much, overloading. But as a kid, walking in and being like, why would she blah? I think a lot of times parents don't realize that is a literal ask for information, or it could be, and you could provide the actual information when asked, which is like, I mean, it's a similar story. It came up in my mind because it's similar to when I'm like, I'm going to leave all my friends. How am I going to recover? I think probably what we didn't cover was like, I am sad that I'm going to leave all my friends, right? Like I'm grieving, I'm about to grieve now. But you still gave me the information I could use to stitch together how I'm going to make friends, there were nuances to it. There were problems when I got there. Like I only had one pair of pants and everybody noticed because I was wearing the same pair of pants every day in Massachusetts that I had from LA,
Which was because living in LA, she had shorts and skirts and stuff. It's like it's not like she didn't have clothes. So she had to wear that same pair of jeans over and over. Yeah.
I know. I only had one pair of pants, and then, it's just like for a minute, we went and got
you were
pants.
tan. You were tan in the middle of January.
I was so tan. I was tan and I was like, I had no embarrassment. I was like, leave me alone. I'm from LA. This place is lame. I was so sassy.
Okay, so do you want to pick this up more in the next time? It's going to be a few weeks from now that we actually record. So
yeah, I think we can think about it. I think that there's something there. I think that there's something, I guess the thing that I would say to you publicly, if we keep it in the podcast, if you're listening to the podcast, is that it's not all about what you did wrong, right? It's not all about that. It's it's also some stuff that really works that other kids don't have access to. I used to call my friends and have them come talk to you when they were stressed about certain things because you would just give them information that they weren't getting from other parents. You know what I mean? Like
Interesting. Yeah, yeah, that's true.
sometimes you just need the information to be able to know what the hell is going on, you know?
And I did have an assumption going
there's-
on. My assumption always was that if the individual human being in front of me is advanced or has matured enough to have the question, they deserve to have the answer. And it's not like saying you're too young or we'll get to that. You won't understand that now or whatever. If they're asking the question, they need to understand it right now. That was always my conviction.
Yeah.
Or you know, they need to understand something. They need some bit of yeah. Yeah.
If anything, it seems like when I review my history here, it seems like what I could have used is if I didn't directly ask for information. I don't know, it's just like being a certain, it's like, could you tell? I don't know how to fill that in. I don't know what to do to for that. There was
I think I could have been more intentional about. I'm very good at asking, what do you think about something? I could have been more intentional about asking, how do you feel? You know, or where is this in your body? I mean, nobody knew anything like somatic back then, but like, now I would say, ask the person, where are you feeling? I've done that. I do that with my adult friends now. Where are you feeling it in your body?
I do that too.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, I'm feeling it. Well, where am I? You know, it's like revelatory often, you know, and so those are the things. I mean, it's almost like there's three. Well, it's the body, mind, spirit thing that you're trying to cover all of them when you're processing something with somebody. So yes, you want the intellectual answer. You want to be in touch with your feelings about it. And you often get to that by figuring out where you're feeling it in your body. And you try to present that complete picture. Whereas me as an autistic person, I was so in my brain all the time. I was very cut off from my feelings because I was told all of my feelings were invalid as a masked autistic person. So I was masking all of them until the last 4 years of therapy that I'm finally getting in touch with my feelings. So that's another whole thing we can talk about. And maybe that's the thing we can talk about next time too, is feelings versus thinking for the two neurotypes. And you know, how do they overlap and how do they so yeah, more of this. I think we've done it for this one too. And do you want to do the closing thing? And I think we should. I like our little bye at the end, so I'm gonna bye with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am less natural at this than you are. Thank you for joining us on our podcast, In the Kaleidoscope. Hope you tune in next time for the next episode, which seems like it's going to be. What did you say it was? What did you say?
It might be the body, mind, spirit.
We'll find out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be a continuation of this discussion
of
some kind. Feel free to suggest. If you want to suggest topics or guest speakers or something, let us know by emailing kaleidoscope@gmail.com.
In the Kaleidoscope. I should put the in the Kaleidoscope@gmail.com.
Right. Okay.
We're still developing our scripts, everyone. Thank you very much.
Oh dear.
Oh, you want to do it again?
I don't know. I have no idea. If you want to suggest topics or guest speakers, or just let us know what you think, email us at inthekaleidoscope@gmail.com.
All right. See you next time. Bye. Stop recording.